like, when I think about it, there's nothing else I would want to do. Like, I do oftentimes, especially now that I'm, like, getting older and I've graduated high school and I'm not a teenager anymore as of 2 days ago. I do get freaked out because I'm like, what if I'm doing the wrong thing? Like, what if I should have went to college? I should be doing like a normal, like pursuing a normal person, like good job. Like I'm pursuing something that thousands of other girls also want. So like you can definitely freak yourself out. So I think I just would really regret it if I didn't take the risk. Mm. Sounds stupid, but like you do only have one life, so I might as well do what I want to do.
The fitness movement is brought to you by ZOAR Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, ZOARfitness.com.
I gotta get a deep breath in.
You're allowed to breathe.
I know, but like when I'm hyper aware of it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what Abby said when she was on.
It's not gonna be good.
You good? The classic Riley. Welcome to the fitness movement.
Thanks.
You're like, I feel super qualified to be here.
Not at all.
You're obviously a ZOAR athlete, and you're training here at Lumber Capital. And people see you, and they see you do a bunch of cool stuff, and you're super strong, athletic, and so you just like grew up playing a whole bunch of sports, right?
So many. No, not at all. I did cross country for like 2 years, but I wasn't good at it, so I don't even count that. Yeah, that's the extent of it.
Did you do like barrel racing or something?
Like, not really. I did it for fun for like, I don't even know how long. Not very long when I was younger. Just rode horses for fun, and like I wanted to barrel race, and I don't know how long I did it for, but I thought that was what I was gonna do.
Was that when you were like, when you say it like you were a kid, like how old were you?
I don't know. I was like pretty obsessed with it when I was like, I was a horse girl.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of girls are obsessed with horses.
I don't know how old I was, like in the range of 10 to 13 probably.
Okay. So probably like middle school. Yeah.
And I like worked at my aunt's like ranch, so that I didn't have to pay for like riding lessons basically. Yeah. Was
that local?
Yeah, she lives like 30 minutes away from my house.
Mm-hmm. So you grew up in like Mifflinburg, which is a small town, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you ended up going like the cyber school route, right?
Yeah. So public school up until like 7th grade, I think. And then I did like hybrid. So I took like some classes in school, some classes online, kind of back and forth, whatever I wanted to do through high school.
Yeah. Why did you choose to do that?
I've always hated school. I don't know why. I just like don't learn very well in the classroom. Like I'm super ADHD. I don't like focus very well. I've never been super into like caring about my grades or like I don't know. I wasn't super into the social aspect either. Like I've just never been like into it. Like a lot of kids like in high school are super into like prom and I don't know, football games and like just like really into their friend groups, and I just never was like that. Like I just always was kind of on my own, so yeah, I just didn't like it.
Yeah, and I feel like you got a pretty good group of friends now, but I feel like it can be difficult, and this is true for like any level. I feel like college, like luckily I was on the wrestling team because I probably wouldn't have made any other friends otherwise. Mm-hmm. It was like built-in friends, but I feel like it can be tough to like find like a really good group of people that like you want to spend like a bunch of time with, and I feel like that probably only makes like choices like cyber school like a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure.
So when did CrossFit come into the picture?
I always mess it up, but I think it was April 2018. So I was 14, almost 15, and I was just bored. One of my family friends did CrossFit. Her brother owned the gym in Lewisburg that I was going to, or that I went to. And I was just bored. And so she invited me to a class, and I went, and I was terrible. But here we are.
So obviously, like, something about it is appealing to you. Do you know at least like what it was, even if that's changed over time a little bit?
I don't know. I remember going to my first class, and there was like handstand push-ups and deadlifts. I remember the deadlifts were like pretty heavy. So like the girl next to me was doing like 185 and then doing like handstand push-ups. And I was like, dang, like I was super skinny and like just noodly and did not know how to move my body at all.
14-year-old girl.
Yeah. And like, I've never been like super athletic. Like I just haven't, I don't know. I didn't do sports. Like I just wasn't super athletic. So, I felt pretty bad about myself when I first went, 'cause I was like, dang, that's cool that she can do that. But I don't know. And from there I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah. I feel like there's some people who would like, when there's like challenges like that, like they want to like run the other direction. Like, I'm not playing basketball. I'm like, I'm bad at it and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, why were you like, this is tough, like, I want more? Like, that's not necessarily intuitive for a lot of people.
I don't know. It's super weird because my family even says, like, my parents, like, growing up, my mom would try to get me to go on runs with her and stuff. Like, she's always ran and, like, whatever. So she always tried to get me to go with, and I just hated it. Like, 5 minutes in, I would start walking. Like, I was just a lazy kid. I didn't like working out. I don't know. It's super odd. Like, my parents always say they think it's so weird that I'm like super into working out now, because I just was so like not into it. But I think a big part of it is just that, like, so growing up, my older brother wrestled, and he was very good, like state champ, has multiple like national tournament wins. Like he was ranked number 1 in the country at one point at his weight. Like he goes to a D1 school now on like a full ride. So insane. But I think growing up, like I felt like I had to prove myself or like live up to him kind of. And so, but I didn't know like what outlet. And so CrossFit was like easy in the sense that it was kind of too late for most other sports because I was 14. Like most kids had been in sports for years, you know?
Yeah.
And so I felt like I didn't have anything. Like I didn't know what to do with myself.
Or at least it feels that way.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna go more of like the traditional sport route, like
for sure.
Like, oh, the kids are already playing whatever like team sport in like your middle school or like high school, and it's like, yeah, even though like you didn't miss the boat, I understand like how it could feel that way.
Yeah, because most kids had been doing stuff for like since they were little, so I felt like I just didn't know what to do. Like it was kind of hard to just like start a sport when you're 14.
Yeah.
And CrossFit like wasn't super big, but you could just start and like, I don't know. I didn't know much about it. I didn't know it could be a sport. I didn't know you could compete when I first went. But I think I pretty quickly, like when I realized that there was a competitive side to it, I was like, I don't know. I pretty quickly was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're competitive, and I also feel like you're someone who's pretty routine and pretty goal-oriented, which are all like things that like CrossFit is going to suck you in if like that's your stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was like, I mean, it's changed now. I think I have healthier reasons for wanting to like compete at the highest level. But before it was like feeling like I had to prove myself or like live up to my older brother kind of.
Yeah.
Like prove to my dad and like my family, like, oh, I can be good at something too. But now it's shifted, I think, more to healthier reasons.
Yeah. And I feel like that's honestly a pretty common thing for like a lot of people aren't necessarily in a super healthy place. Like when they get into CrossFit, I mean, there's some people it's like they're literally unhealthy when they come up. So it's like their goal is to get healthy. Other people, it's more like they're in an unhealthy like mental place, and like CrossFit can help them, or any fitness or movement, or, you know, it doesn't have to be exclusive to CrossFit, but it can help them to create some like routine and consistency. But then it's like often they're not like necessarily as like kind to themselves when they need like time off, or they, you know, or like, you know, starting to train too much and like dealing with like, you know, recovery issues and like that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's like, I feel like it's often easy to jump in with both feet in a positive sense, but then also that has like negative repercussions with it.
For sure.
Did you like, were you like held back at all? Like, did you like anybody who was like kind of making sure you weren't like overstepping too much at the beginning, or do you feel like you just were kind of at the mercy of like figuring out based on like trial and error?
I think it was trial and error. Like,
Yeah.
I just started with classes, and then I don't know, I would just like add extra stuff afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a point where I for sure was doing too much, and like, because I thought that like more meant quicker results. And so I kind of screwed myself in some ways, but
it does at the beginning.
yeah,
Like,
for sure.
like if you're just doing classes, like even if you don't literally do nothing else, but you just add in a little extra something, like you will get better.
For sure.
And that's the thing. It's like, oh, that's the formula. Like if I do more, I get better. And then it's like, well, at a certain point that breaks down, obviously.
Yeah.
So
And
you
that's
got to figure out.
when it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought like, oh, if I have a whole day, like of just Metcon after Metcon after Metcon, like
Yeah.
that's going to make me better. But I think at some points I was definitely overdoing it.
Yeah. Which again, I think just based on your personality, but also just people who are going to be drawn to CrossFit as a whole, like I feel like that is a pretty common thread for a lot of people, especially when you want to be good too. Like it's one thing if you just like you have a career outside of CrossFit and like you really want to pursue that, and like, but like if that's like your thing and you want to get as good as you possibly can, then it's like, well, you kind of do want to dedicate as much as you possibly can to it.
Yeah.
I want to revisit a story. I wanted to bring this up from the beginning. And this will kind of like bring in like your more up-to-date self. But I kind of made a joke about like, oh, what's your job? And then I ended up planning some people. You want to tell that story as how you remember it?
So I don't remember the initial conversation, honestly, but
I'm a little fuzzy on that too.
I think you had asked me, like, when somebody asks you what you do, what do you say? And I think I said, I work at a restaurant. And then you were like, I don't remember.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically how it
You were
went.
like, you should be saying you do CrossFit competitively, and then you work at a restaurant on the side.
Yeah. Basically, I was like kind of getting a feel of like, you know, where is this like sitting in your mind currently? Because like I knew you wanted to be a high-level CrossFit athlete. So it's like, if that's the goal, you like want to be a professional athlete very literally in the sense where you get paid to work out.
Yeah.
However, even if you're not there yet, like it's helpful to have that mindset of like, hey, this is where I'm going and that's like my goal.
But it like feels embarrassing or like stupid to say because it's like I don't make any money from it, so why would I say that?
Yeah.
Until I actually do.
Right. Yeah. And that's like there's like a sweet spot with that for like a lot of stuff, right? Like you have to believe that you could be a CrossFit Games athlete to probably be able to go there. Like maybe there's someone who's like just completely caught off like, wow, I really thought I wouldn't make it. But I think that's pretty rare that happens. And I feel like most of the time it's like people at least have an idea of like, hey, it would be not unreasonable for me to make it. Or I actually believe that I can do this. And by the time it actually happens, they're not surprised at all when it actually happens. So I think, yeah, like my point was like, if you want to be like, make CrossFit your career, then just start saying that, you know, that's really your pursuit. And that like, hey, I have a job where I make money and doing this other thing, but that's not like my career, so to speak. And like, I ended up basically, I forget who the first person was.
I think it was Michael.
Yeah, well, Michael was the second one. There's someone else earlier in the day, and they came in. I think it might have been, no, I got Ashley to do it first. Ashley Carano came in. Yeah. I was like, Ashley, go ask Riley what her job is. And you failed that one. You said you were working at a restaurant. And then we had a conversation again. And then like a couple hours later, maybe not even that long, like Michael pulled in the parking lot and I was walking out. I was like, Michael, go in there and ask Riley what she's doing for her job. I don't even remember. What'd you say when you came in?
Well, I was suspicious at that point. I was like,
you're like, he's
that
up
was
to something.
definitely Ben. So then I was like, okay. I started laughing really hard and he was like, what? And I like told him the story. So I think I kind of like loopholed my way out of that one.
But then like someone like 2 weeks down the road is going to be like, so Riley, what do you do for a job? You're like, were you put up to this? Oh man. But yeah, I mean, so like that's obviously, I mean, I feel like it's tough to say, like come out and say like, hey, I want to make this like my profession. But like, I think we're both kind of understanding like we want you to take it, or I want to help you take it as far as you can.
Yeah.
And that's really the goal, right? To like see what you're capable of. And I feel like even people who are a little bit more recreational, like that's the case where it's like, I want to see how far I can go with this thing, even if it's like they have more constraints on like what they're doing. Do you feel like that's an accurate description of what the goal is for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you remember how long it was before you like started like doing some extra work? Like how long were you in classes before like you just started adding other stuff in?
I'm not sure. I honestly think I pretty quickly started adding other stuff in. But like I didn't know how CrossFit really worked. So like I usually would just go home and like do like bro stuff. Like I would just do what my brothers and dad were doing.
Yeah.
Like shrugs and like rows and bicep curls and dumbbell bench and whatever. Yeah, I would just like add that kind of stuff, and then eventually I like started running and like making up random metcons.
You had done some of like that like lifting bro type session stuff like before joining CrossFit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. So like right around cross country, I started lifting with my brother a little bit, and I like started gaining weight, and the next year, instead of like getting better at cross country, I got worse.
Funny how that works.
So I don't know. Then I remember someone telling me, I don't remember exactly who, but an adult told me like, oh, if you want to be good at running, like you can't get bigger. Like you got a little bit bigger this year and like you can't do that. And so then I was like,
was this someone like in the school system?
Yeah.
Like one of your coaches? Yeah. Accurate, but probably not helpful.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is accurate, but I think it was the delivery of it. And,
yeah, that's a very delicate conversation.
Yeah, and like, I mean, an older male, like a adult male saying that to like a
also
middle
probably not
school
the place
girl
or
just
time.
isn't,
Yeah. Like this is a middle school person.
Yeah.
Yeah. That conversation stick with you for a long time?
Yeah. It wasn't intended to be harmful, but I think at that point.
It was more just like careless.
Yeah. I think at that point I was like, I think maybe I'm done. Like I would rather. And I enjoyed lifting. Like I really thought it was fun, and cross country wasn't fun for me anymore. And I was never like good. So it's not like, I don't know. There's just no point in staying in it. So yeah, I had lifted a little bit before.
Yeah.
But nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how like conversations like that, even if like to the person was just like an everyday conversation, like, hey, like if you keep gaining weight, you're probably not going to run as quick. Like,
yeah.
Okay, that might be true, but like you completely missed the boat in terms of like the person in front of you. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like people have different conversations like that where, yeah, the repercussions of something like that kind of stick with you for a long time. And like, yeah, I mean, you can kind of get into as much as you want, but like, I'm not saying it's just because of like something like that, but like conversations like that certainly have like a role in like how we view ourselves. And like, you've kind of said that you've like dealt with some like body image stuff along the way. And it's probably a very difficult question to answer, so you can kind of take this whatever way you want with it. But like, where does that kind of come in for you and like fit in your mind with like your story?
Like what, timeline or?
Yeah, I mean, you can start with timeline.
I don't know exactly when. I think it was pretty early, like a lot of girls, like you start realizing, I don't know, like at some point you start like actually looking at your body and being like, oh, is this, like comparing it to other girls and whatever. I'm not sure. I think it was like after middle school, like early high school, that I started to like just create some unhealthy eating habits and being super hyper aware of my body and just looking at it all the time and picking it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough, like regardless of who you are, like especially as an athlete though, like you do have this like different relationship with your body in the sense that like we're actually talking about this earlier too, not necessarily about the body image thing, but like you like expect your body to perform in a certain way, and then so you're like hyper aware of like what's going on with your body, and then combine that with like I am comparing myself against other people. I'm like growing up like stuff that you're already gonna naturally do. I feel like it's a perfect storm to like, if like body image stuff is gonna be there, it's gonna make it worse potentially. How have you felt like you've been able to like unwind that a little bit over the years?
Like get better with it, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I think realizing that we're trying to maximize performance and not aesthetics, like I think that's helped, because obviously like being super worried about your body image is like caring what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so I had just started like for like, depending on the time, but like kind of just wouldn't eat for a really long time. And by really long time, like a week or something. And then I would binge. And then I would like have like a week period where I wouldn't eat because I felt guilty. And then I would binge and whatever. And I think it's like easy to talk about like the not eating side of that eating disorder, because it's like not necessarily easy to talk about, but like it's easier to say that than to be like, oh, I used to binge. Like I would just like go crazy and stuff my face with food and like hide it. Like that's more embarrassing to say, but it's just true. Like I struggled with that, like binging and not eating. And I think then when I had like started CrossFit, I thought that I needed to eat less. Like I thought I needed to like lean out and just like eat less. But then when I like learned more about the sport and how much you actually should be eating, I think CrossFit really helped. Like just learning more about food and that I should be eating enough to fuel performance. And
It's interesting because I can definitely relate to this because like I'm sure most people who have gone through like a restrictive period, like you can't, I mean, it's unsustainable. Like you can't do it forever.
No.
So at some point you break and essentially you're gonna like, you can call it binging, you can call it whatever you want, but like you're basically like refueling yourself essentially because you're starved yourself.
Yeah.
And like I've done that a lot with wrestling, like gotten to the point where I'm like, and you can do that in a way where like it's going to be optimal for performance. And like, I can probably confidently say I never did that. Like so far off of what optimal would be, but it's like, so it's like a very similar thing is what I'm saying. It's not like inherent to that sport. It's like you're trying to bring this down as much as you can. And then when you can't do it anymore, you kind of break and like revert back to what you were, you know, closer to maybe swinging the other direction a little bit. But like, yeah, it's one of those things like, again, there's going to be people who can't relate to that at all. And there's other people who like, that's like a reality still for them.
Yeah.
Not that you have it all figured out, and neither do I, but like, do you have any advice for like people who are like dealing with stuff?
Yeah, I definitely don't have it all figured out. I still struggle with it on the daily, but I don't know, just like taking the time to work on your relationship with food and work on your relationship with yourself and your body image, it just is very worth it. Like it takes time and it's not an overnight thing, but like getting help also helped me, like talking to a therapist and working through my issues, because it stems like, I don't know, for me it was very like deep rooted. Like I needed to like go get help and like talk to somebody about my issues to make progress. So like if you have to go talk to somebody and it just takes time and it's not an easy thing, but it's worth it.
Do you feel like, I mean, likely as like this teenage girl, like you look up to like a lot of like the elite CrossFit athletes, I'm guessing. And like a lot of them, not all of them, but like a lot of them are obviously like superhuman, like body types and like 8-pack abs and like kind of unrealistic for the average person. Not kind of unrealistic for the average person. Is like seeing, I mean, I guess in contrast to that though, it's like they are like muscular human beings, and like they're still like, a lot of them are still like really proud of their bodies and what their bodies can do. So do you feel like that was more of a helpful impact or like a hurtful one?
I think initially because I didn't know, like I was just like uneducated on food in general. Like I thought that that's why I needed to restrict, because like when I had first started CrossFit and I thought that I needed to eat less to lean out because they were so lean and like you said, like had like 8-pack abs and whatever. So at first I thought that that meant I needed to eat less, but the more I learned about the sport and that like they don't look that way because they're chasing like aesthetics. They look that way because
they're not going to step on a stage.
Yeah, no, they look that way because they're doing everything to optimize their performance. So I don't know. I think now that I'm older and know more about it, it's not a negative thing.
It's tough because like the people who get the biggest spotlight are the people who are going to have like a certain aesthetic along with it. But not even all people at like the highest level are that way.
No.
Like there's plenty of games athletes, male and female, who are not shredded, who have a pretty normal, healthy body fat, and like you just don't like see them pop up in your feed as much.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that can be a little bit misleading, but also like that's just social media as a whole.
Yeah.
So taking stuff with like a grain of salt and like understanding like what people are chasing, like you said, I feel like it's certainly a helpful route. How's like your relationship with food like nowadays?
Much healthier. I don't count my macros currently. I did for a while, and I think right now, I don't know, it's just not like super helpful, because when I was like super restricting when I was eating, I was putting everything into an app, and so sometimes I can like subconsciously like connect it to that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm like eating way, way, way more, I can still sometimes like think of that, and that's not super helpful. So I don't know, right? Maybe eventually I will start counting my macros again, because I did like it, but I think right now, while I'm still not like in the most perfect place with my relationship with food, I feel like it's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about this a little bit. Like, I don't really see the need, at least right now, for you to be tracking food super closely. Like, obviously it's super important that you still focus on good quality nutrition, but that doesn't mean tracking everything. And I'm in a very similar boat. Again, I've had a few more years under my belt since like I've dealt with like my disordered eating, let's call it. But like I still don't track regularly. And part of that is probably a little bit of a cop out if I'm being honest at this point, because I have had enough separation. But also like I feel like I'm relatively educated about like I can like see a food and sort of see what macronutrients are in it. And if you can do that, you can sort of get a balance of each of those. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but also like that might be a better like quote unquote solution to like what's going on than like tracking it 100% and then becoming like using that as sort of like a crutch, or it being like a, you know, an issue down the road. Oh, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a topic that you'd like to request as a future show, or just a question about training? Reach out to me. My email is ben@zoarfitness.com, or you can DM me on Instagram @zoarfitness. Lastly, head over to zoarfitness.com if you want to browse all of our previous shows with in-depth show notes, as well as educational content for all things training. Let's change gears a little bit. Was there a point with like CrossFit that like you, or like a moment where you like realized like, oh, this is it, like this is what I want to do?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can think of. I mean, I think it's just like getting like addicted to seeing the progress, like learning new skills or like PRs or whatever that like in the beginning made me hooked on it. But yeah, I can't think back to like a specific moment.
So we opened Lumber Capital on October 1st, and basically like the next week you showed up here, and then basically been here a minimum like 5 days a week, driving back and forth, like a 40-minute drive, Like, it's a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you doing it?
It just fits really well. Like, it's worth it to me. The gym that I had originally went to closed like a month after, like 3 weeks maybe after you guys opened, but I had started coming here before they closed, or before I even knew they were closing. I just kind of outgrew it, and I was really looking for a long time for like somewhere that I felt I would thrive in, like competitively, and this just made sense. So the drive is worth it.
And again, it's tough because like I get it too. Like, this isn't a knock on anybody's gym if they're not like a competitive gym, because like competitors are needy.
Yeah.
And like you're either feeding them or you're not.
Yeah.
And it's okay if like that's not like your thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, obviously, if you can get connected with some place that understands not only what you're trying to do and like how you are going to have certain needs that are just different from the, I don't want to call it the average member, but the non-competitive member. Yeah, it's just a very different, it needs to be a very different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, certainly there can be a lot of really good stuff that comes from non-competitive people in the same community as competitive people. Like, I feel like we only ever hear about like the negatives of that kind of thing, like in the CrossFit space, like how it like tears gyms apart and this and that. And I feel like it can also be the opposite, where like people like rally around the people who are like, they see them in here working super hard all the time. Like, I don't know if you realize this or not, but like you probably inspire like a lot of like men and women, but I'm sure like especially like the women in here to like be the best version of themselves. Like, I'm not sure if you realize that people are watching you in that way.
I don't usually, but who was it? Was it Kara the other day that said like someone was in here during that like team throwdown thing you guys do? And I was like in the corner doing like, I was just rolling around like a monkey.
Random
like,
skill work. That
yeah,
Coach
it was
gave
like candlestick to like strict handstand push-up or like inverted burpees or whatever, and like pullovers. I felt so stupid because there was a bunch of people that I could see staring at me, and I was just like throwing myself around. And then she like told me some girl was so impressed with me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. I don't know. I just thought I looked stupid, but
yeah, but that's the thing though, is like, that's like such a quintessential thing that happens all the times in gyms though, like around the world, not just CrossFit gyms, like commercial gyms too. Like everybody feels like they're being looked, and like people are like feeling self-conscious about themselves. Like, oh, everyone's staring at me. Like, I even feel this way. Like, I go to do like handstand walking, like free handstand push-ups, and I'm falling on my back like for like 20 minutes. I'm like, I really don't feel like just being watched and getting this done right now. And it's like, that's all part of the process. Like, everybody feels that way. So fast forward about 6 months, you did quarterfinals. The thing is, they went okay.
yeah.
Like, not like amazing, but you definitely improved from the year before.
I improved, but like I was not happy. Like each workout individually, just not happy at all. Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people in that situation where they have like the crux of their season, it maybe doesn't go the way they want, but they saw like meaningful change in the way that they wanted to go. They would just like double down on like what they're already doing. They're like, and like you'd be the first one to say it this year, like there's certain things that I would have changed about the 2022 season that like I didn't do it perfectly. So like I still improved. If I clean up some of that stuff, I could probably make a really good, improvement in 2023. Why did you like opt to hire a coach versus like doubling down on what you were currently doing?
Well, originally I think I did want to double down on what I was doing. I knew that there were things that I could change that I just didn't do a good job of, like things in my control, like my sleep, my food, stretching, like taking the little things seriously. I didn't do that. And so I think in my mind I was like, we just need to get more intentional. And so I did want to double down on what I was already doing, but just like make the outside factors better. And I had a lot of conversations with my dad, and he just really, for a long time, has felt like I needed someone to program for me, just because I'm the type of athlete that, like, I have really big strengths and really big weaknesses. And so, like, like in the open workout, 23.2, like the two-parted one.
Yeah.
My score in the running, like the shuttle run burpee pull-up versus my score in the thruster was so embarrassing. Like, it was just like I didn't even move on the leaderboard, maybe a tiny bit, but like because they were so extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just like have big weaknesses and have big strengths. And so doing just a generalized programming wasn't working anymore. And I think I so badly wanted it to. So I just like was convincing myself, like, we're fine, we can do it on our own. Because like I was adding in some random stuff. Like I would take something out. Like if we had like front rack walking lunges programmed, I would do them overhead. Or like, I don't know, I would add in a lot of strict pull-ups because my strict pulling is really bad. Or just my pulling in general is really bad.
Has been.
It has been really bad. But yeah, and then a couple conversations with my dad, I think we had both decided I really do need a coach, because I was trying to do everything on my own and it just wasn't working anymore. So yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be you or not, but
yeah, I didn't know either. Yeah. And it's really, I mean, obviously it's cool to see someone like take the next step in terms of like professionalism and like any way that they go about it. Obviously it was super cool. Like, knowing you're at my facility and like already caring about you as a person and like as an athlete, to like have you come to me was obviously pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to point you in the right direction, even if it wasn't like me doing it. But yeah, glad it worked out.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously like there's just like stuff that is going to be just a challenge for like an athlete who does have, they're just like their essence is a certain way and it's hard to change that. Like, you're a strong girl, like you want to lean into that, but like at the same time, like in order to be able to like showcase those abilities, like especially at like the earlier stages in the season, like you have to be good enough at the other stuff. And yeah, you're getting a lot better at that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see. I mean, what do you feel like is going to be like the biggest area of like growth for you? And this can be just like zoomed out for like this year.
Like movement wise, or like?
It could be movement wise. It could just be like in general, like as you as a person. It could be you as an athlete, whatever you think.
I don't know. That's a hard question.
Let's go movement wise.
Okay. I mean, I think my overall just like conditioning in general needs to get better. I think that's the biggest thing, but my gymnastics is like the biggest visible thing, I think. Like, it's just so obviously bad. It was so obviously bad. We're working on it, but
yeah, and again, so obviously bad to you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like, again, if you have the average person looking at you, they're like, wow, she can do all the movements. Like, and like, truthfully, like, your movements are pretty clean,
Yeah.
like, generally speaking. Like, okay, so you can't string like 15 ring muscle ups, but like when you do them, they still look pretty clean. Like, you know, there's a lot to be said for that. So
Yeah.
like, it's also like exciting as a coach to be able to see that, because then it's like you don't have to spend as much time like working on like the super basic positions and like some of that stuff. Like, you can kind of get into training a little bit more and like see pretty good results.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Obviously, like a lot of the body weight stuff, like some of the cyclical, you know, it's like the simpler type workouts, I feel like can be tough. But was anything else you'd add to that list? Like big priorities for this year?
I don't know. It's hard for me to think about.
Yeah, I mean, so personally, I would just add like confidence.
Okay,
in those
I thought we
things.
were talking movements, but I was literally gonna say the same thing. Like, overall, just like me as a person, I think I don't believe in myself enough, or I'm just
Yeah.
not confident enough a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you're only going to continue to like improve your ceiling as like you improve like your confidence in yourself and like in your abilities. And like I feel like you understand like what you're good at, but like I feel like oftentimes you don't give yourself enough credit for like the stuff that like you've been working really hard on that historically hasn't been as good. That's like we've seen really good progress in. And like obviously like things are still pretty new, but like as you continue to develop as an athlete, like the ability to be confident enough to just like go up against your capacity and like go toe to toe with people who like traditionally you would have been like, oh, I'm like worried about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like a tough thing to quantify, but I feel like you've been experiencing that.
Yeah. I'll like go into workouts and like treat it. We were talking about this the other day. Like I'll treat it like I would have treated it a year ago. And like I'm not the same athlete I was a year ago, but I think I freak myself out.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I have to like I overly pace things, or I just like stay too conservative the whole way through it.
Yeah, you were just doing, I forget what the workout was. I think it was just like intervals of a bunch of different stuff. But, and you were like doing your burpees or whatever. And I was like, why are you going at that pace? and like, kind of like a snarky way, but also like you can go, like you have another gear now. And like, I almost feel like you were just like unaware that you had that.
Yeah. What workout are you talking about?
I don't remember what I think it was just like some of like the aerobic intervals that I was giving you. Yeah. I think it was like the every 4 minutes and then go through like three movements to like the cap of like 2 minute mark. So basically 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off for like a bunch of rounds. And yeah, you had some like burpees in there and it was just like, you can go way quicker. you can really hammer down now. But like I feel like that's the other thing is like it's not just like about developing capacity. It's like it's knowing how to like go up against your capacity in all the different types of workouts. One more thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was like and again, we'd made a joke about this earlier about how your career is CrossFit. And like, yeah, you have a job where you make some money, but like, this is what you're pursuing as your career. Do you feel like you're holding off something else by pursuing CrossFit as your career?
Like holding off something else I could be doing with my life?
Yeah.
Like when I think about it, there's nothing else I would want to do. Like, I don't know what I would do. Like, this is what I want to do. But I do oftentimes, especially now that I'm like getting older and I've graduated high school and I'm not a teenager anymore as of 2 days ago. I do get freaked out because I'm like, what if I'm doing the wrong thing? Like, what if I should have went to college? I should be doing like a normal, like pursuing a normal person, like good job. Like I'm pursuing something that thousands of other girls also want. So like, you can definitely freak yourself out.
Yeah.
But like I said, there is nothing else I would want to do. And like, yeah.
I think it's super interesting how you didn't just like snowplow your way into like a career that is like something that you don't want it to be like 10 years down the road, where you didn't just like, I'm going to not elect a major and go into school or something, right? Was that your decision? Did your parents talk to you? Like, how did you come to the decision? Like, after high school, I'm gonna, again, as I'm putting it at least, like pursue a career in CrossFit.
I mean, it was my decision. My parents, I'm lucky enough to have parents who like do support that.
Yeah.
Obviously, to like, they still want me to be smart and like make money and not be an idiot about it. But like, I know a lot of other people's parents like wouldn't have supported me not taking like a traditional route. So it was my decision, but they do support me in it.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've had that kind of support throughout your life where it's like, even if it's not maybe the traditional route, like you get support from your parents and, you know, your friends?
Yeah. My parents have always been very good about it. Like I said, obviously, like, also being smart, but yeah, they've always been
that's
good
your job
about
as a
it.
parent, is to like I want what's best for you, but then also like make sure that you don't put your hand on a hot stove.
Yeah.
Like okay, like this might not be the route for you, but like let's figure out what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I just think like I would like so regret it if I like there's like I said a million times, like there's nothing else I would rather do. So if I just like took the traditional route because it's safe and like hated my life, like just had like a 9-to-5 job that I hated, and I don't know, like got married and lived in a little house, and
So you're like saying like a lot of people's dream.
yeah, which is like great and
Yeah.
perfect for
But it's their
them,
dream.
but just like for me, I just don't want to do that. Like, yeah, so I think I just would really regret it if I didn't take the risk.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds stupid, but like you do only have one life, so I might as well do what I want to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's like it's also like when you know that you're holding off on something else, it allows you to even understand that, okay, this is what I'm dedicating to for now. Mm-hmm. It allows you to be a little bit more all in on it.
Yeah.
A little bit easier.
Yeah. And I do have other like goals and aspirations in life. It's not like my whole entire world is CrossFit. Like I also know that I have to have an identity outside of CrossFit, and I have to be a person outside of it, and have other goals and dreams. And I do. So, but
yeah. And like I think that's super helpful when, I don't know, you miss the game by 2 spots in 2 years, right? Like something like that. Like if that kind of thing happens, like you need to have an identity outside of like, I am a CrossFit athlete.
Yeah. And so I'm fully aware that like of the risk of it, and that it's not guaranteed, but it's like a risk I'm willing to take. And
yeah, it's exceptionally rare that a person is like actually like all in on like something, and it's like, especially as like a coach, it's just like, yeah, exceptionally rare that like you have someone and you can like manipulate like a lot of factors in their life. Like we were literally having this conversation the other day, like hey, you could move to literally anywhere in the world and like just like be there and like train CrossFit if you wanted to, right? Like, and obviously like it's one thing to be like around like your family, and like there's a reason why you're here is what I'm saying, but like all the options are on the table for you.
Yeah.
Which is a cool thing. Like to be able to say like I can kind of manipulate my job, my current schedule, like where I'm staying, like what my schedule looks like all of it, like very rare.
Yeah.
I don't know if you realize that.
I do.
But it's one thing to say like, oh, it's super rare, but also like you formed your life to be that way. Mm-hmm. Like that's sort of what it takes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Is there anything you're specifically excited to looking forward over the next upcoming months?
Just to see where we can take it. I mean, like I don't know how long you've been coaching me, like a month and a half.
Yeah, not very long.
Not very long, but in the time, like I've seen so much progress already, and I know like, yeah. So I'm just excited to see where we can take it. Yeah,
me as well. It's like I said, it's exceptionally rare that like you get someone who has a lot of talent, but is also like has a lot of like their like adaptation left, frankly. Mm-hmm. Like you're still really young and have like a lot of room to grow, which is really cool. And it's an opportunity and something that, at least for me, I don't take super lightly. And like you're dialed in. Like there's stuff to improve upon, obviously. Like we like this is always the case. Like there's always stuff that you can clean up and improve. But like I'm just excited for what you got coming to you.
Me too.
Riley, thanks for doing this today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.